Hey everybody, wake up. This is Wake Up with Mark Joyner, episode number 105. And today we will ask the question, who should you believe, your body or the numbers? All right, so I just finished my morning routine, feeling pretty good, but a little bit stiff. And this has something to do with what I'm about to talk about here. So every now and then I let myself do what I call a carnivore cheat. So I'm on the carnivore diet right now, have been for, goodness, I guess around 10-ish, 9, 10 months now. Something like that. Not really paying too much attention to exactly how long, but a good little while at this point. And with the exception of a few, radical cheats, I think there have been about maybe 2 or 3 of those along this journey, which didn't do my body a damn bit of good when I did them. I've been pretty strict with it. Now, there are levels of strictness within the carnivore paradigm. This is kind of a new thing. There's no right or wrong way to do this. People have differing opinions. The folks that I follow are like Sean Baker and Paleo Medicina and guys like that. They're the ones who seem to be taking this quite seriously, and are helping a lot of folks, getting a lot of results for people, resolving a lot of autoimmune conditions. I have probably fought, my whole life, assuming that's what it is. Nobody really knows. I had, multiply diagnosed stomach problems from the time I was a teenager, and the medical community couldn't do much for me other than, provide drugs to mask symptoms, which would cause, just greater distress and greater problems in the rest of my body. So, I've turned to many alternative things, and carnivore is one of them of late, and it has worked quite well for me. Now, in a strict sense, if you want to be a carnivore, all you eat is, animal products. There are some people who say, okay, you have to limit it to flesh. You can't be eating, milk products. Some people say, hey, some cheese from time to time is actually not that bad because, when you actually turn milk into cheese, it takes the lactose out. The lactose is the most offending part of the milk. So it should be safe, right? But then there are people who say, hey, look, if you really want to get positive results from carnivore, you got to be very, very strict and eat only beef for a long time. Now, I have noticed, so I use some butter, as a lot of carnivores do as well. But what I'll do is I'll turn it into ghee because the ghee takes the lactose out. My body does seem to respond far, far better to the ghee than it does to the butter. If I eat the butter, I notice that I can get a little bit of inflammation in my joints. I'll notice, or that my stomach doesn't feel exactly quite right. But if I eat the ghee, I don't have that effect. So when I do a carnivore cheat, I might do something like some salami and cheese. Right, I've done that a few times, throughout this journey. Sometimes if I do it just once, this would be once every several weeks kind of thing. I'll feel okay, but if I do it a couple days in a row, I start to notice some issues. So I had one of those carnivore cheats last night where I had, a fair bit of some very, very ripe cheese because the riper it is, the less of that lactose is going to be left over, and some nice salami, and that was nice. It was quite enjoyable. But this morning, I did notice that my joints were feeling, quite stiff. Now, here's where this comes to the topic of today. Now, I've had multiple food sensitivities tests, throughout my life, and I have never shown to have any sensitivity to casein, which is the protein in milk, or lactose. Now, by the numbers, I should be able to eat dairy just fine because I am not technically, by their definition, lactose intolerant or casein intolerant. So, if the scientific community is telling me by the numbers that milk is safe for me, I'm just imagining this problem that I seem to feel when I eat dairy products. Here's the problem with this. So first off, in one sense, yes, your senses can sometimes be deceiving. sometimes you're not getting the full story of what's going on in your body when you just listen to your senses. There are multiple things going on around you, multiple causes, which could be causing a particular effect. So, if you're making, an error of thinking that, hey, I did this and then I experienced this, therefore this was causing this, you're making, what in logical, in the terms of logical fallacies, if you study symbolic logic at all, this is a classic logical fallacy known as post hoc ergo propter hoc. That's Latin for after this, therefore because of this. Very, very useful, by the way, to make a study of logical fallacies because they will help shine a light on deficiencies in your own thinking. Should I dismiss, however, the feedback that I get from my body when science is telling me that I'm not intolerant to casein, I'm not intolerant to lactose, but every time I seem to eat dairy, I feel a certain effect. Here's why you kind of need both, okay? The numbers are signposts, they're guides, they're useful sometimes, but often what they do is they can mislead us. What if there is something that we have not yet identified in milk products that is causing a problem in my body? Even though, we have broken down certain components and have identified certain components that are reliably predictable in telling people whether or not they're going to have a problem with a particular type of food, can we trust it completely? And the answer is obviously no, because as we, as I talk about very, very often, our body of knowledge is constantly evolving. So, if somebody tells you authoritatively, milk's going to be fine for you because the numbers say so, you got to take that with a real serious grain of salt, and you got to question whether or not they truly understand the depth of the complexity of the types of issues that we're dealing with here. So, who should I listen to? Should I listen to the numbers or should I listen to my body? Well, if every time I eat a particular food and it's pretty consistently reliable for me, I need to listen to that and I need to think, okay, so, even though I'm not technically allergic to casein or lactose, my body's having a problem with it. Now, here's another thing. How are they measuring that sensitivity? There's probably a range of reactions that they are looking for. Now, if the numbers that they come up with are not within those reference ranges, they're going to tell you are not intolerant to it. But it's possible that there are other things going on in your body which might make a lower number in those reference ranges still be meaningful. It's possible that they say, well, you're showing a tiny spike on lactose, but it's not within the range that we would consider lactose intolerant. It's within the range of what, most normal people can tolerate, so you should be okay. Well, that's, the larger population. It's altogether possible that there's something going on in my body that makes me uniquely different, so a lower reference range number means something else. So be very, very careful about how seriously you take those reference ranges. You have to look at all of the information that you have. You have to take it all, look at all of the information that you have. You have to take it all into consideration and use all of your tools to make these judgments. Now, the great Paul Chek, I remember once watching a video by him where he was talking about how rational thinking is but one of the ways that we have at our disposal to make determinations of things. We also have intuition, we have imagination, we have our feelings. Often these feelings and these intuitions are very, very useful guides for us. You have probably noticed sometimes that you get an intuition about a person. You're like, hey, maybe I should not trust this person. Maybe that, this person isn't exactly quite right, even though your rational mind is telling you, well, you have no real evidence of that. That's just your feeling. Can you really trust your gut? And then you regret later on that, not trusting your gut pushed you off in a wrong path. So I'm not giving you an easy problem to solve here. This is one that I don't know if it's completely solvable at all. But what I do want to point out is that if you get stuck in the paradigm of believing only the numbers, you are on a path fraught with peril because it's missing certain information. It may not give you the full picture. It may be missing a broader context. It may not be taking into consideration your bio-individuality. All of these things make us look at numbers in a very, very different way from what we are taught to. We are taught that the numbers are the numbers. It's the most reliable stuff. That's the only thing you should trust. It's not true. It's not the full picture. Free your mind by taking into consideration all of the information that you have at your disposal. Definitely don't rely just on the way you feel. You know, if you drank milk and you didn't feel good, it's possible that it wasn't the milk that caused you not to feel good. But if you see it consistently as a pattern, then that's something that you might want to take a little bit more seriously. I don't know about you, but at the end of the day, if the number says one thing and my body says something else, and if my goal here is to feel good and to perform well, and I am feeling good and performing well, under a certain paradigm, that's probably what I'm going to tend to follow, regardless of what the numbers are telling me, because we keep learning new contexts to all of these numbers. All right, guys, that's it for today. You have a beautiful day, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow.